Welcome to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio, 708-223-8953. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. For all of you who continue to support, I'd like to say, as always, thank you, thank you, thank you. So last week we had an interesting show. We spoke about women's health with Queenie Love. Shout out to Queenie. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for the opportunity to get really personal about what was going on with you, your experiences. And thank you for continuing to put out great content, continuing to communicate with the people about what's important, not only to you, but to others and what the issues are really all about. So we're going to keep it going about women's health. We have Nurse Erica with us today. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. So we're going to get into speaking about women's health and talking about what we discussed a little bit earlier about why it's important for you to speak on these things, and you can talk to the people about why it's personal to you. And we're going to do that in a couple of seconds. But before we do, I just want to thank each and every one of you again for supporting the Denasha Harrison Show. Today's show is brought to you by Ambassador O Ministries. It's brought to you by In the Beginning Ministries. It's brought to you by K Harrison Incorporated. So all of those sponsors have been very instrumental in continuing to keep this show on the air. And for Kelvin and Ophelia, I just like to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. And also, can't forget about Up and Going Cleaners. Anthony McMath, thank you for what you do. One piece at a time is how you're handling business with people getting their things taken care of, clean, pressed, so that they can present well. You know how we do it from the West Side. We always going to look better than we probably feel from time to time. That's how we learn. So everything from personal clothes to banquet um, halls um, to funeral parlors. He's picking up a lot of things in the northern Indiana area, Southland Chicago area, and to my knowledge, he's actually out west and in the Austin area to include the downtown area. So again, Anthony McMath, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for how you keeping us, how you continue to keep us looking fresh and clean. So I'm going to go ahead and give the number, um, and then we're going to keep it moving. So again, Up and Going Cleaning Services. Anthony McMath, serving the Chicagoland area, one piece at a time. 312-834-6199. Again, that is 312-834-6199. So thank you for what you're doing. All right, so we're going to give some more numbers later on in the show. But without further ado, we just want to introduce you to the people. Uh, Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on. You had the opportunity to come on last Wednesday, so I'm glad you had the chance to kind of check things out to see if this is something that you want to do and something that you want to be a part of. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell the people about what do you do? What makes you an expert on what we're about to talk about? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, my background is I have been a nurse for 20 years, a little bit over 20 years. And as a nurse, I have always advocated for my patients. I'm a very caring nurse, a nurturing nurse. I have always stuck out as a thorn because I always wanted to make sure that I was giving my patients the best possible care that I could. The reason why this particular topic is so important to me because it's personal. Black maternal health is very personal to me. In October 2022, I lost my daughter, 24 years old, African American, first baby.
Hmm.
And it's very hard, extremely hard. However, God has given me the strength to turn my pain into purpose. So I'm able to do that with creating awareness, awareness to the topic. My daughter passed away from pulmonary embolism, something that is preventable. On October the 14th, 2022, I was away overseas, out of the country. I had just spoke with my daughter maybe about 5 hours prior to that. I got a call later on that day stating that my daughter was unresponsive. So, with trying to make it back home, it was very extremely hard for me to get there. So, I didn't know what happened to her originally. But when the autopsy came back, it did say pulmonary embolism, and the reason was complications of a C section. So, I thought that my grandbaby was 3 months. So, I thought my daughter was out of the woods. I thought she was fine. She was post op 3 months from a C section. What we don't know is you're not out of the woods into a whole year, one full year.
Hmm.
After finding out about my daughter's death, I started to research. In my research, I found out that so many African American women are losing their life to complications of C sections. Hemorrhaging, pulmonary embolism, preeclampsia are all your number one complications from a C section. So, with the more and more that I researched, the more that I found. I didn't know that Serena Williams, her last baby, she had complications. She had a C section. She continued to advocate for herself and let them know that, hey, something is going on, something is wrong. I have dealt with blood clots before. I know something is wrong. She asked them to do a CT scan. They refused at first. They did a Doppler. Her Doppler came back negative, stated that she didn't have any blood clots. She continued to advocate for herself, letting them know, no, I know something is wrong with me. So, because she continued to advocate, she was able to get a CT scan done after hours of asking for one.
Hmm.
CT scan came back. She had pulmonary embolism. Had she not advocated for herself, she would not be here. Pulmonary embolism is completely preventable if it's caught in time. If it's not caught in time, you die instantly.
Mm.
The last person that spoke with my daughter was at 10:45 a.m. My daughter was observed down unresponsive at 12:30 p.m. That quick.
Wow.
So, with looking at the ratios, finding that African American females are dying at a much higher rate than any other minorities. They're dying at 3 to 4 times higher than any other minorities. Why is that? Serena Williams have all the money in the world. And still, it was an issue with her getting the proper care that she needed.
So, would you say it's a combination of lack of care from physicians? Um, Serena obviously is, she was educated enough to understand what was going on with her. You're educated enough to understand what's going on with the community that the people who are in this position, especially your daughters. Many condolences to you and your family about your daughter. You understood the situation. Do you feel like our community does not pay enough attention um, to their own personal health to where they can advocate for themselves? You think it's more of lack of physician care for black women, or more of us not being educated enough, or a combination of the two?
I think it's a combination of all the above. I think that is racial disparities. I think socioeconomics play a part in it, bias play a part in it, medical insurance plays a part in it, It's all the above. We don't get the proper care that we need. We're not educated the way that we need to be educated. It's all the above. So, knowledge is power. We have to create awareness. We have to let our African American females know that you have the option. You have autonomy over your body. No, you are your first advocate. If something is wrong with you, you need to speak out, even if the physicians are telling you no. Usually, we're not being heard,
Mhm.
especially African Americans. They don't hear us.
I spoke on this before about um, self-advocating, right? Advocating for yourself about your health. And one of the things that I brought up was not only the education piece, um, but being as consistent as you need to when you're speaking about someone who who's not in your household, who's not with you, who's not going through what you've gone through. You know, on the physician side, when someone's diagnosing you and you feel like they're not paying attention to you, how you have to continue to push and push and push, because at the end of the day, we get processed through systems, whether it's the healthcare system or certain social systems. I know as a veteran, I have to advocate for you know my health. I have to advocate for my different appointments, and you know they've improved from the first time I've dealt with the Veterans Office of Veterans Affairs. They have. I think that um, the Jesse Brown facility doesn't get enough credit for the good things that they do in our community. Just because it's a facility in the suburbs doesn't mean that you're going to get better care. So I I go right off of Damon to Jesse Brown to get my care for the VA, but you can't help but feel sometimes that you're getting processed through. I spoke about getting comfortable where I work. I brief certain things to certain people, and sometimes people just want to come in, get the brief, and then keep it moving. My attitude about it is now you need to get comfortable and get this information. You need to get real comfortable, relax. You need to go get a drink of water. You need to go to the restroom, do whatever it is you need to do, because when I give you this information, we're both going to have an understanding that you understand what I'm briefing to you. And I believe we should take that same approach when it comes to our health. When we feel like we're being
Absolutely.
processed through, we need to slow that process down, because that process is about our health. And I believe that we need to take the time to get very, very comfortable when it comes to our own health, us advocating for our health, us advocating for others. You mentioned earlier that you're an advocate for health, and I understand your position um, as a nurse, and I understand that because you have lost your daughter, that would kind of charge you to do this work. Um, can you share with us what type of platforms um, are you introducing yourself to for your advocacy about women's health?
Um, I am introducing myself into whatever platform that needs to be put in place in regards to the Black maternal health, whatever there is for me. If there is a foundation, if there is where we go out to clinics and we speak to the teenagers, because right now it's teenagers that's having babies and they need to know about the different options that they have. Um, I'm introducing myself to a whole different world because it's very important to me. Most of our, not even, I wouldn't even say teenagers, But I would say most of our African American females, they don't even know what a doula is, and a doula is so important
Mm.
to not only the postpartum part of maternal health, but also the beginning too. They actually advocate for you, and they participate, and they make you as comfortable as possible.
And can you explain in detail um, the the responsibility of a doula?
The responsibility of a doula is to make the mom as comfortable as possible and to prevent, you know, as much as stress off of her as she can, whether that means that she's doing things that doesn't take medications. For example, when a mother is in labor and she doesn't want any pain medication, she wants to have the baby natural. It's natural things that you can do to help with pain. We're, you know, we have gotten to this point where we feel medication is always the key. We feel that surgery is always the key. C sections, you know, with all types of surgeries, you're always going to have that risk. You're going to have that risk of pulmonary embolism. You're going to have that risk of hemorrhaging, things of that nature. So, why not do things the natural way? And with having a baby naturally, of course, you're going to have issues with that also, but it's less than it's less complicated than having a C-section, or if they're giving you medications. All of those have side effects to it. Every medication you take have side effects to it. So why not do it the natural way? Doula have ways of, turning the baby in the right position, putting the mom in the right position to make her as comfortable as possible. You need to be able to be comfortable to be able to actually have the baby. You need to be, the less amount of stress. Usually we're stressed out as African American mothers. Sometimes we're on our own. We're doing it ourselves. So not only you pregnant, you trying to work, sometimes going to school, taking care of other children. All of that plays a role. So the doula helps with all of that. She not only helps with, the baby, but she also helps with things like cooking and whatever she can do to help the mom out. And it's not just about mothers. It's also about fathers. What about when you have someone that has passed away, a mother that has passed away? Where does that leave that father? So I want to touch bases on the fathers too. The fathers need help too. Where does it leave the father? He's left with a child that he has no clue of how to take care of. What resources do he have? So we can't just think about the mom, we have to also think about the father. So whatever platform that is for me to be on, so that I can create awareness, so that I can help other mothers, so no one should have to feel the way that I feel. No one should have to feel the way that my granddaughter is going to feel as she's growing up motherless. No one should have to feel the way my son-in-law feel as he's trying to take care of a motherless child.
And that's deep. That's deep. It's you talked about post-op prevention. Um, it's just to wonder how many mothers, how many families um, out there that need post-op care, post-op treatment, are not getting it. It's disheartening. So if someone wants to, if someone wants to learn the importance of what we're speaking of today, um, I'm not sure if the hospital is the right place to go or if there's an alternative to the hospitals or the clinics, especially in neighborhoods like where we grew up, right? For some reason, I keep getting West Siders on the show, and I'm not apologetic for it. I'm unapologetic about it, is what I'm trying to say, because we're from the West Side, and it's a different type of experience. One of the things that I believe are missing on the West Side is more capable facilities for our families, especially our Black women, when it comes to hospitals, clinics, or alternatives. So, where would someone go to get the necessary information to understand, number one, the importance of prenatal care, um, the importance of post-op care, um, the importance of having um, the medical the medical community involved with the process as you heal after birthing a child. Where's the resources? Where would you recommend someone would go to get the necessary resources to educate themselves?
There are resources that's out there. The hospitals do have resources. It's just not enough. It's not enough information. It's not enough education that's being given. So that's why we're creating awareness, because this is a crisis. We need to make sure that our Black moms live. Our Black moms matter.
Mhm. Do you have the statistics?
I do have this. It is, when I looked at it, our African American females are dying at a much higher rate, and it's 3 to 4.
Wow.
It's the ratio is 3 to 4 times higher than any other minority, and it's the African Americans.
Mhm.
So when you look at that, you have to look at everything. You have to look at the racial disparities. You have to look at socioeconomics. You have to look at the bias. You have to look at, are we doing what we need to do to not only help ourselves, but to create awareness? I mean, each one can teach one. If you know something, say something. If you have been in certain situations, then speak up.
So I started to talk about this in the beginning before we started to talk about the subject for tonight. And I believe that this is just how God works, because this is a perfect segue to what's on this paper. And this is an opportunity to use this platform for what we're speaking about here on Intellectual Radio. On May 17th, the Chicago Urban League is going to hold an annual summit, policy focused on Chicago's businesses and civic leaders examining issues that are critical to our mission of social and economic equity for Black Chicagoans. And I believe that um, with this year's public summit um, being themed "The State of Black Chicago's Solutions," the State of Black Chicago Solutions, um, they're going to try to highlight efforts to decrease racial disparities when it comes to primarily home ownership, employment, and income. That's going to be outlined on the 17th, um, on the 17th of May. So when we speak about home ownership, employment, income, it ties into the type of neighborhood that is being developed, and healthcare, medical facilities for people of people of color in our neighborhoods is very, very important. So I believe that this actually does tie into what we're speaking of, and I believe that this will be a great opportunity to use this platform to further the cause that you speak of. I'm going to look into going on something called Ticket Falcon to try to see if this is going to fit in my schedule for May. It's going to go May 17th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and it's going to be at the Marriott Marquise, which is 2121 South Prairie Avenue, and that's here in Chicago. So we're talking about it right now. I'm going to talk about it later, after the show. And I'm going to invite each and every one of you to look into this as well. Again, it's the Chicago Urban League. They're doing something called State of Black Chicago Solutions. And I think that this is a great example of what we need to focus on. When we talk about social economics and we talk about home ownership and, financial empowerment, we tend to leave the medical piece out of those conversations. And I believe that this is a great opportunity to speak on this crisis, because you can't fix one solution, you can't fix one situation without the other component. And I believe that
Absolutely.
that this is much too often left out of the conversation, especially for our young black women, especially for our black women as a whole. Um, I believe that the disparities are also rooted um, in assumptions and myths. You know, black women are stronger than others, and they can take pain more than other races. So we need to not pay as much attention to them because they're gonna be all right. You know, they don't need all that much. Their pain tolerances are higher. Are
Absolutely.
those some of the things that you've heard in your profession?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Those are some of the things that I have heard.
and being on the front line there, I can imagine how you would have to speak truth to that nonsense to set people straight when it comes to the adequate care that we need to get.
Absolutely. First of all, you can't tell someone how much pain that they are in because you're not experiencing it. They are. So, how can you say, oh, you're not in pain? But, you know, they think that African Americans, the healthcare system thinks that African Americans, they are pain seekers. So, we seek pain medications. We're not in pain.
So when you say that they feel like we're pain seekers, as in we are looking for we're looking for a fix, we're we're using this as an excuse,
All of the above:
attention.
attention, excuse, fixes, all the above.
And do you believe that it's primarily racially motivated, or um, do you believe it's just based on their ignorance, a combination of the two? What?
A combination of the two, in my opinion. I do think that it's racial, definitely.
Mhm. When people don't look like you, when people refuse to see you, I believe that that creates a void for the excuses that are being made as to why we don't deserve the same type of attention when it comes to our healthcare needs. And I also believe that it's it's steeped into tradition of us not being able to go to certain places. We can't go to the same facilities. um, Back then, we couldn't go to the same facilities that gave adequate care. So a doula in our communities back then were very important.
Extremely important. And a doula in our communities now is even more important because we are dying at a much higher rate now.
So we definitely have to bridge the gap on all fronts, right? So we have to trust trust that we can advocate for ourselves. We
Absolutely.
we have to address the medical issues that we have instead of dismissing them like, oh, I'll be okay, I'll self-medicate. Do you feel like our community does a lot of self-medicating?
I do. I
Mm.
think that we do self medicate a lot. And one of the reasons why is because we're not paid attention to. We're ignored when we do go to the hospital. Most of the times we get brushed off. When you know something is wrong, but you have a physician telling you, oh, there's nothing that's wrong. You're okay. Well, go home. We're going to give you this medication. That shouldn't be. That's not right. When you know something is wrong with you, you can't give up. You can't allow someone to tell you there's nothing wrong with you. It's so many cases where people have been misdiagnosed.
So, what happens to a physician that brushes you off, misdiagnoses you, uh, tell y'all you'll be all right? You know, you ain't got nothing to worry about. If there's a physician that continues to repeat these behaviors, what's the recourse for the patient?
Well, I'm not 100% sure about what's the recourse, but there's options out there. That physician has a boss. If you're not getting any answers from that boss, then you go higher. But sometimes you don't know that you have options, or sometimes you don't want to take the hard way out. You want to take the easy way out. You don't want to deal with the emails. You don't want to deal with the calls where you have to call and email and things like that. But sometimes it takes that. You have to do certain things to get the better outcome of things.
So I say it starts with education.
It
Uh,
definitely starts with education. You have to educate yourself on all platforms, and you have to know what you're talking about. It's as simple as, if you was diagnosed with cancer, it's better for you to get a second and a third opinion because multiple people have been misdiagnosed. So you want to just make sure. And even when they tell you you do and they give you the treatments that you're going to be on, you need to research that too to see if it's the right treatment for you, because what's right for someone else may not be right for you.
right, it's not a one size fits all.
No, definitely not.
So I believe a lot of people who don't really understand a situation, it's easy for them to brush that off. It's not until things get really, really critical that they, start reaching out to, whoever would listen. But the time for application um, is now in order to, help with, preventing things that gets worse. What is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely.
That's the phrase. So I really appreciate us talking about this, and we're going to continue to talk about this some more. You're listening to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. We're talking about women's health, very important, especially for our sisters, especially for African Americans, to include health as a whole when it comes to our community. So we're going to keep on with this subject. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue with this conversation. So we're going to take a real quick musical break on the Denasha Harrison Show, Intellectual Radio. Talk to you in a second. You ain't got enough money to buy my soul. Ain't strong enough to stop me. I'm out of control. This the matrix, I'm Neo. I know that I know. I am that I am. That's why I speak so bold. On the verge of losing hope, I know where to go. Switch my style from singing vocals to magical flows. Study the streets a little closer. One with the ghetto. Got wise as I got older. Alone with the metal. New millennium rebel. After that federal dollar. Balance the world on my shoulders. I know my soldiers are following me at war. Cause kids still dying in the streets at war. On the block running from the police at war. In the US, this ain't the Middle East at war. With the problems in my own community in the war. It's the only way to fight an enemy. Lord, save my father from this bottom of Hennessy. With more can I give? I'm giving all of me. And for real, it's only getting hotter for me. Harder to see and harder to breathe. And there's only one remedy. I gotta be smarter than my enemies. In the water. Wade in the water, children, now wade in the water. God's trouble. I'm being chased by demons that triple team, exposed to false religions. I'm hated by jealous niggas that don't wanna see me living my life scar from living hope. Pulling up papers and chasing paper, no holds barred. Peace of mind and yet divine, my heart's cold. Got no friends, my last road dog turned me in. Because the war would never change. Who takes the blame for bad decisions? So many missing for following orders. Cause ill giving got the world tripping. They pushing prison at us young niggas. That's why we haven't had triggers, won't let the war get us. I'm not alone with the way that I feel. Welcome back to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. Again, 708-223-8953. We're talking with Nurse Erica about women's health, having some very serious conversations about how your health is your wealth, as I say often, and how inch prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. All right, so we're going to keep on with the conversation. During the break, we talked more about a pulmonary embolism. And so we wanted to go into the definition of what that is for those who don't know. What does that mean and why is it so dangerous?
A pulmonary embolism, in layman's terms, is a blood clot. It's a deep vein thrombosis, and it usually originates in your limbs. Once it dislodges, that's when it becomes a pulmonary embolism, which they call a PE. And the PE can travel to your lungs, stop you from breathing.
Okay.
So usually once that PE dislodges, it breaks off and travels. Usually you don't have a lot of time.
And what's not a lot of time?
Most of the time you die instantly.
Mm.
If it's caught in time, it is treatable.
And what are the symptoms?
Symptoms is usually shortness of breath. Is hemoptysis. Hemoptysis is when you're actually throwing up blood. But these symptoms can look like other situations is going on. So sometimes you wouldn't know. However, if you have had any type of surgery, you are at risk for a blood clot. You're at risk for a DVT. Those are the risk factors. Those are the complications to any type of surgery. So if you're having any of these symptoms, shortness of breath, hemoptysis,
And hemoptysis is
where you're throwing up,
okay.
you're having emesis and you're throwing up blood. Usually it can be blood tinged. It don't have to be actual blood. It can be blood tinged. You need to get to the doctor right away.
Okay. Very serious subject.
It is definitely serious. With maternal health, postpartum is so important. You have to look at those signs and symptoms. You have to look and see, when you have a C-section, usually the pulmonary embolism starts the lower extremity because you just had a C-section. If you have any shortness of breath, you have any hemoptysis, you have any type of lower extremity pain, usually in the calves, you definitely want to get emergency attention. Postpartum care is so important, not just for pulmonary embolism, but also depression. So many women have depression after they deliver, and it's not being talked about. And that's where the doula comes in because she actually helps with that also.
Is the depression from, is it a chemical, psychological, physical? What causes postpartum depression, clinically speaking?
Clinically, it's the pressure of everything, the pressure of life. Now you have a new life.
So just the reality
Just the
of
reality have set in and everything that you have to do.
mm,
Some of our moms, they don't even know where their next meal is coming from. So that depresses you. You have children that's dependent on you. You have you're worried about how you're going back to work. Most of us go back to work way before we need to go back to work. So we have all of these things that's, weighing us down, depressing us. And some of us don't feel like we're depressed. We're still moving around like we're okay when we're not.
going through the motions.
You're going through the motions. And you have to recognize it. You have to be able to talk to someone. That's very important, extremely important. Your mental, your mind is very important.
This this puts a new meaning to the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child.
It definitely takes a village to raise a child.
So during the process, into the very beginning of that child coming into the world, so that community, that tribe is very important. And unfortunately, we have a lot of single black mothers trying to figure it out on their own, right? So what happens after the delivery? Who's actually picking our sisters up from the hospital and taking them home? Like something as simple as, do they have a ride home?
Hmm.
And that ride home, is it going to be a comfortable ride home, or are they getting on the CTA? Are you
Absolutely.
getting on the bus to go home after you had your baby? Are you getting on the L to go home after you had your baby? So the whole foundation has to be there from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the platforms. This is one example of a platform. I know I asked you, what other platforms, and I believe that this is a wonderful opportunity to start the process of uh, educating the public about the crisis that our young black mothers are in, the crisis of um, post-op care, so that you know these things that happen too often can absolutely be avoided. So this is truly a mission statement made on the Denasha Harrison Show by you about what's moving forward with you and what you're planning on doing. And I have no doubt that everybody that's listening will be on board to advocate with you and for you. There's a lot of other platforms, like I tell a lot of people. Um, IntellectualRadio.com is a huge family. We have a whole lot of shows. And like I tell people, if the Denasha Harrison show is not your flavor, I guarantee you'll find another show that is. I think starting right here on such a platform that's very supportive of different topics and different views will be a great place to start. Not just coming back on the Denasha Harrison show, but like the show that was on before me, for example, Intellectual Vibes. Wonderful subjects, wonderful platform. The motto around here is to feed your brain, right? So I can think of no better subject to advocate for than this one. You're always welcome to come on my show anytime, to include talking to other shows. I have some speaking engagements coming up towards the end of the month. I'll be speaking at a couple of high schools. As a matter of fact, April 26th, I'll be at a high school in Indiana, speaking with the youth and the debate teams about how there's other options for you besides the military, or how there's other options for you besides pretty much what you're getting fed. And, a lot of people get their dreams dumbed down by our systems that are supposed to educate and inspire, you know. And so this is all connected to the subject here, because a lot of people just want to feel loved. A lot of people want to feel appreciated, needed. They get into relationships that they unfortunately um, have gotten into because they didn't have the education to have the foresight to see this is not a good relationship for you to get into, or you know our young black women are not as protected as they should be. They're being raped. Um, they're being abused in ways that the media, the mainstream media, does not report. So, what are our options, and 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 how do we protect our communities? So, you got a lot of theories. You got a lot of people who talk a lot but don't make the time to do. So, I believe that this is a great example of doing. And I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to be creative. You know, um, we don't know what the next move is. Are you going to go to, the Chicago Urban League and talk about this on May 17th? And if you're going to talk about it, who are you going to talk to about it? You buy a ticket, you sit there. Um, People think you want to talk about housing, but you want to talk about, how your health is your wealth when it comes to young black mothers. um, so who is the ear that we need to listen to what needs to be said to further this agenda. Me personally, I think that the existing systems, as biased as they may be, um, there's still a lot of good people in the healthcare system to kind of help further this cause.
Absolutely.
So, um, the fact that you know this craft and you know what is lacking in our healthcare systems, you also can identify what's available to help build a foundation to catapult this conversation. So that's the positive that I'd like to take out of this. Um, to continue to have the conversation, continue to advocate, continue to talk, um, continue to share, continue to come onto the show, to continue to educate ourselves on um, how to prevent such tragedies that are happening every single day. This isn't something that just occurs like quarterly, correct? Three
It's
out of four?
happening every day. Yes.
3 out of 4 is ridiculous.
It's happening every day. And, you know, I'm not the type of person to put a problem out there. No, I want to be a part of the change. I want to be a part of the solution. So what I what do I do to try to make a change? So that's where this creating awareness and being an advocate for the mothers, not just the mothers, but the fathers too. So being able to be a voice.
Absolutely. It's again May 17th, 2024. The Chicago Urban League is going to hold a annual summit. They're going to talk about policy focused things concerning Chicago business. Uh, Civic leaders are going to be there examining issues that's critical to our mission for social and economic equity. We have to have some buy-in in the city we live in. How many times have you heard that this neighborhood is going to change? This neighborhood is going to, in 5 years, in 10 years, this is going to be different. And we grew up in it. I know we've heard often on the west side of Chicago how, there's going to be another grocery store that goes up on Maypole and Cicero once Buddy Bear's got tore down. You know, you can't find a grocery store in that Austin area. Um, on the other side of Austin, you got couple of Whole Foods, right? And so we know what that's about. It's been about that the lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll say it that way. DEI is under
Absolutely.
attack all over the U.S. In Texas, they just passed a bill um, against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so now teachers who were teaching it are now jobless. Some institutions are vowing to put their teachers back to work. But I believe that you're going to see a lot of lawsuits out of Texas about firing teachers without notice, coming to work, realizing they don't have a job because of the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we can speak um, about the racial disparities that have been all over our beautiful city. We love the city. That's why we're still here. I love Chicago. That's why I'm still here. Been all over the world, and there's nothing like Chicago. But it goes beyond the food. It goes beyond the beautiful skyline. It goes beyond the wonderful springs and summers, right? You have to have some buy-in in your community. You have to have some buy-in in your neighborhood. You have to have some type of equity um, to to um, to be able to affect change in a positive way. Which is why, again, when it comes to the state of Black Chicago solutions, not only will they talk about home ownership, but they're talking about employment, and they're talking about you know uh, how to handle the income, how to be a part of the city. And again, I believe that the health care conversation should be front and center on something like that. So today is what, the 20, is it the 24th today?
Yes.
Today's the 24th. We're talking about May 17th. So um, between that time, there may be some type of point of contacts that will put your subject that you're talking about here very, very front and center. We just have to do the work and find out who that's going to be. I'm not going to be on the air again until May 15th, so I'll be traveling, but I'll be back before that um, that summit. So I'd be very it'd be very interesting to find out how far we can get from now till then. Let's see. Let's see how far we can get. Let's see how many people we can reach. Let's see how many people we can talk to that will help effect change in a positive way when it comes to women's health care, when it comes to your health being your wealth. So let's see who's going to be willing to partner. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be somebody that you know, somebody that you can talk to? Can you call 708-223-8953 or 224-800-9719? Again, 224-800-9719. Give us a call and let's see if we can partner with someone who can put this conversation front and center so that we can save people from things that they should not be uh, dying of. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Our
So,
Black moms' lives matter.
Black moms' lives matter. Absolutely. And the Black family absolutely matters. Again, what are we doing for the father that has a child without a mother? Okay. We got wonderful grandmothers and aunties and cousins and things of that nature, but their lives take them outside of that household. So, what about the household that needs that mother, that needs that doula, that needs that father who should be whole? So a lot of things to address and a lot of things to work towards. Absolutely, there are challenges because we're here in the strange land making our way, right? But at the same time, um, this is something that we shouldn't just brush up under the rug, like, oh, we'll be all right. We're strong people. No, there's resources out there that we actually have to go after. There's conversations that actually need to be had. Diversity, equity, and inclusion um, covers a whole span of things that are necessary for us to have healthy lives and for our communities to be healthy communities, for our social circles to be healthy social circles. I guarantee when you take care of Black women's health care, that takes care of the home crisis, that takes care of our economic crisis, that takes care of our crime crisis that's going on in Chicago and other areas outside of the Chicagoland area, within the Chicagoland area, for our communities, whether it's Chicago, Detroit, right, Cleveland, Los Angeles, New York, Miami, huge immigrant city. We have that. Unfortunately, we have that common thread where the Black woman is not being heard as she should be. So let's start with paying attention to our young women as young Black men, men of other colors. Let's start paying attention to our young sisters and let's start right there. Let's start by listening. Let's start by being a part of the process when you got your first trimester, second trimester, all the way to the third. Let's make sure that we're available to go to those different checkups, to be a part of that conversation, and let's educate ourselves about those conversations before we have them so we're not just brushed to the side, right?
Absolutely.
So, but I appreciate your time. You're welcome anytime to come on the show. Before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share and leave with the people on today?
I would just like to say thank you so much. I do
Absolutely.
appreciate it. This was so hard for me to do, but I'm thankful. I'm really thankful. And if it helps at least one mother, at least one family, then I know my job is done. But I'm going to continue on this journey. I'm not stopping. This is just the beginning. So,
And we're going to,
knowledge is power. So, we're going to continue to create awareness and be advocates.
absolutely. And we're going to take that journey with you. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on to the show. Um, and you're always welcome back anytime on the Denasha Harrison Show, whatever platform I got going on, you're always welcome to it. So thank you very much for your time. And please come back soon. And again, it's April 24th. So between April 24th and May
May
17th.
17th.
We're going to see how far we get. We're going to see who we've partnered up with. We're going to see how far we can take this subject because it definitely needs to go in a positive direction. All right. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining me on the Denasha Harrison Show. Again, I'll be back on the air on the 15th of May. I have some travels that I need to do. But if you want to catch the show, you can go to intellectualradio.com. You can also go to YouTube. We're actually on YouTube right now. So whether it's my show or somebody else's show from Intellectual Radio from this platform, continue to feed your brain and understand that, hey, we're all one family. And any comments that you have, please put in the comment section. Press that like button and continue to tell others about the show. All right. So this is the Denasha Harrison Show on Intellectual Radio. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you on the 15th of May at 8 o'clock Central Time. Thank you for joining me.
Feed your brain.
Got the coordinates. It's about that time.
IntellectualRadio.com. Feed your brain.
So thank you.
So,
Yeah.
okay, this is